Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. On the show, we're talking about the debt. Not our country's debt, but the debt that really is holding back our country. Student loan debt. How to cancel it. Also, we'll be talking about New Hampshire, Bernie Sanders, and the Nevada Workers and Culinary Union 226. And what in the world is going on there? All manner of unsavory things. All right. We'll be talking about that. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Spencer Walsh. We're getting right into it. So on Friday, the Debt Collective began its second mass student loan debt strike. The leftist organizers put student debt jubilee on the map during Occupy Wall Street, and their legacy shines throughout progressive politics. Even serious presidential hopefuls like Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have taken up the mantle of erasing student debt. The organizers with Debt Collective offer more than just grassroots support for debt forgiveness. The group has come up with an actionable legal blueprint, which is going to be really important for making it happen and fast. The next president can cancel student debt on day one, said a statement from the Debt Collective. Congress built a self-destruct button into the heart of the student debt system. This means we could have a debt jubilee months from now. So very exciting for a lot of people who are just, again, drowning under the stuff. All they tried to do is get an education. Right now what's happening is people are just profiting off of their misery. And it's very, I think more people are hurting from this than are benefiting, and it's really become quite clear that something needs to and very well could change, because again, as I've said before, as I've said many times, like when you don't put money to support people going through these tough times, like when you don't support people dealing with their debt, like people like those same young people, they're not going to be able to buy a house, they're not going to be able to start a family. Like that's not going to happen. We're not going to see the normal kind of progression of the millennial generation, of my generation, if this thing continues completely unabated. So that is the reality of the situation there. So Debt Collective's approach to erasing student debt is based on a Department of Education legal authority under the 1965 Higher Education Act to compromise, waive, or release any claims against student debtors. A willing president could, without new legislation, immediately enact the cancellation of at least all public student debt. While supposed pragmatists deem such plans as impractical and idealistic, how could it ever happen? How are we going to be able to cancel all the student debt at once? But it could literally just happen with a snap of the finger due to this 1965 Higher Education Act to compromise, waive, or release any claims that it has against student debtors. A willing president, they could do that very, very quickly. This year, Warren became the first presidential hopeful to vow to use this exact executive authority to wipe away the majority of U.S. student debt, especially in the public areas where I think it's going to hurt a lot more. It's going to help a lot more people, because the whole thing about, if you're rich, you don't have any student debt because you go to, and if you're rich, you don't have any student debt, you're going to public schools, you're going to private schools, whatever. That I think that changes extraordinarily. When we see this this measure, which is going to be mostly targeted at people going through public schools, which is definitely going to go further to help the middle class and the working poor of this country. We are closer than ever to making student debt erasure happen, and not because of policy wonks at think tanks or Senate officers, but rather because a grassroots movement organized behind an aim and then set about figuring out how to make it a reality. And I think that's really the best way to go about it, because like when you want something from someone, I mean, the best strategy is not only to convince them of it, but say, hey, when you decide that this is the right idea, let's walk you through each and every single solitary step. This is going to be so easy. Just follow my lead here, folks. Follow my lead. Gracefully move our way into this. And that's really what this debt collective group has done. It is critical for people to understand that the grassroots does not just take ideas from on high and build support for them. Ann Larson, a debt collective member currently on the student debt strike, told me by email. Law and policy are not just complicated, though elites like us to think that they are, and that we should leave the real thinking up to the professionals. We refuse to do so. And it's part of a reporting here done in The Intercept by Natasha Leonard. That's what this whole story is all about, really. But it really shows you, like, this is something that it can be done. It could be very easily done by a lot of people, and this could be applied to many different issues. I really like what they did here with the whole idea of really walking like very, very willing participants, like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, if they were ever to reach the presidency, how they could see their way to easily erasing and getting rid of the student debt. And it's a very, very doable situation. That's, I think, really what they made them realize, and that is something I think they've been very effective about. As for which presidential candidates might be up to the task, I mean, Sanders and Warren seem to be the only two at this time. Warren has already pledged to use authority. Her debt forgiveness proposal is less robust than Bernie Sanders. In January, Sanders introduced a bill that would automatically cancel student debt loans that were made, insured, or guaranteed by the federal government. The different approaches are unsurprising, as Warren has supported a mode of government through executive power for a long time at this point. It's just her style. Like, she's kind of, what she is really trying to represent herself as a kind of a compromise candidate, someone who's going to be in between, kind of flexing and weaving and worming her way through the policies when it comes to differences between the moderate wing of the party and the Bernie Sanders wing of the party. And I think that's really been, I mean, if we could want to talk about the detriment of the Elizabeth Warren campaign, it's been people like Roger Lau and Joe Rossbars who are running her campaign and pushing for things that she tries to stand for. They're just not popular, and it's really hard at this point to tell what she stands for, what path she's going to want to take the country in, and that's very, 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 very telling. And could be very, very devastating when it comes to her overall electoral chances. But that's my side note there about Elizabeth Warren. But still, back to this debt thing, it's nonetheless striking that a Democratic presidential candidate famed for detailed policy planning is proposing to use this little-known legal provision and the debt collective legal research helps bring to light. And the organizers are keen for Sanders to embrace a possible executive action plan in recognition that a Republican majority in Congress will stymie progressive student loan debt legislation. That's very, very tough. And we always hear, Bernie Sanders is not going to get any of his legislation passed due to this. I mean, it doesn't have to be legislation. It's right there in this law, this 1965 Department of Education, Higher Education Act, which is quite powerful. So you're just like, hey, it's right there. Yeah. A bold executive could instruct the Secretary of Education to immediately free 45 million people from the burden of student debt without having to ask Mitch McConnell's permission. It's so huge. As from the debt collectives, Larson told me, this is, again, Natasha Leonard talking to Ann Larson of the debt collective. We all know that the Senate in particular is as corrupt and racist and as useless for anybody but the rich as the governing body on earth. The left should be looking for solutions that can help us win real gains without having to go through Congress. And this, on this issue, is certainly a way to do that. So in 2015, the Debt Collective launched the first U.S. student debt strike in history, collaborating with former student debtors who had attended predatory for-profit colleges. So in 2015, the debt strikers deployed a legal strategy enabling thousands of people to apply for and receive debt relief from the Department of Education, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars and counting. So that's good to see. Approximately 25 million people are already not paying their student debt. The collective urges that people politicize this non-payment and reject a logic that sees non-compliance with the debt system as a moral and personal failure. So, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be really huge, especially to convince the older generation of, because college was a lot cheaper back when they were around and in their kind of heyday. It's much, much easier for that. It was much, much easier for them to pay off their student debt because they barely had to pay to go to college in the first place. So they probably could pay their student debt by reaching in their wallet as they walked out the door on graduation day. And they're saying, like, and they come from definitely a different time. Because, I mean, if you're younger listening to this, you could probably hear your grandmother or grandfather saying, like, back in my day, when you took out money, you paid it back no matter what. And if you didn't, you suffered the consequences. So that kind of realignment of thought I think it's going to be very interesting. The shifting of the American opinion is something that I think is happening and definitely should happen, because it's just about time, really, at this point. Because it really has gotten to a point where it's just dangerous if we continue to go down this road here. So anyway, the thing with the debt resistance movement has always been as committed to navigating the strictures of this given political, economic, and legal system as it has been rhetorically rejecting its claims to legitimacy. The new strike campaign, as initiated on Friday with a launch event at the University of California, Los Angeles, aims to support individuals in debt non-payment, but again recognizes that a strike is the only one tactic in the push for Jubilee, which means no debt whatsoever. And that's what it means to organize within the already existing conditions, said Larson. There are undeniably huge risks in staking a movement's success on the election of the right president, putting full faith in any politician to deliver economic justice, and that's why the work of spreading collective debt strike is as if not more crucial than delivering elegant and efficient solutions to elected and would-be officials. And I think that's, again, it's another reason to come in and support Bernie Sanders or support Elizabeth Warren, even if you so choose, because Elizabeth Warren, she is all right on that front, but I don't know, who knows how long she'll be in the race. But, I mean, if that does happen, if you care about getting rid of the student debt, if you see it as a real possibility, which, I mean, if you're listening to the show, maybe you probably do. You're sticking around for as long as you have, you probably are at least somewhat to the left of the average Democrat. But I think that is, again, another reason to come in and support these left-wing candidates for sure. In their two-pronged approach of economic disobedience combined with the realpolitik know-how, the movement for debt resistance promotes a politics of critical realism working within and against a rotten system. So they're really pulling out all the stops here. So credit to them. They have really managed to, I think, pull out all the stops in what is a very, very effective way here. And, yeah, so this movement, it promotes this kind of thinking. I think a lot of other movements could take a page out of their book. As a statement for the Debt Collective this week put it, if we leave it up to politicians, it is never going to happen. We need a mass movement to ensure student debt cancellation. But the statement also emphasized that we need to elect a president who will push that button, and a president who's going to stand behind, I think, these supporters and stand behind these people in their fight, which I think, I mean, we only got one president for that. Come on. Anyway, so, yeah, that is, I think that's probably as clear as day to a lot of people out there. So, all right, before we move on, excuse me, do want to thank you so much for listening, and if you feel like you like the show, you want to support us, give us a rate, give us a review on wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Spreaker, you can follow SWN to get personalized emails to your inbox about wherever we go live. So that's always a lot of fun. But you can also, if you're listening on iTunes, that's perfectly fine as well. You're listening wherever you get your podcast. We're pretty much everywhere at this point, especially if you're listening to us on iHeartRadio, #1 for podcasts now, I keep hearing. Very, very fun. So, yeah, you can rate, review, like, comment, subscribe, whatever the case may be, on your respective platform. Of course, if you're listening on iTunes, it's personally the platform I know best. You can drop down to the show page, review, rate, get those ratings up. So we can always do better when it comes to that. So, all right. We now turn to New Hampshire and soon to Nevada, because Nevada is, of course, this week. In a return to the state that gave him a soaring victory during the last contest for the Democratic nomination, Senator Bernie Sanders again clinched a win in New Hampshire. The result is the second popular vote victory in a row for Sanders, who captured the greatest share of the first and second preference votes in Iowa. So let's just say it here, Bernie won Iowa. I'm going to say it. Bernie won Iowa, folks. Sorry. Anyway, so New Hampshire is relatively friendly territory for the Vermont senator, whom hometown media market overlaps with parts of New Hampshire.